We are going to propose, among other things, a forgotten set of heroes. People who suffered for their beliefs and who have been lost to history because they did not conform. And we are going to debunk some of those heroes that you believe in, not with malice, but by restating the facts. Unless we remind ourselves of the good that we have lost, it's not easy to imagine a better future. By showing you the patterns of behavior which have come to be that you perhaps have not noticed before, we will try to bring you back to the meaning of this country and what's so radically changed after World War II. There have been some profound mistakes, but we still have a chance, I strongly believe, to correct them.
That was a clip from the introduction of Showtime's Untold History of the United States, a so-called classified look at the history of the American Empire. Joining us now are the two men behind the series and the authors of the companion book, Academy Award-winning writer and director Oliver Stone and Professor of History at American University, Professor Peter Kuznick. I watched the installment last night on Showtime, and there's been, some controversy about it, with people saying, you're distorting history and everything like that. What is the big deal here? I watched it. It was fine with me.
I'm glad you liked it. I mean, we worked very hard on it. We've been at it for 4.5 years. The facts there have been fact-checked by Showtime and also by CBS Corporate. It's been thorough. You can argue with the interpretations, but the facts are solid.
Which interpretations so far?
There's several in that chapter. We have 10 chapters, and there's quite a few myths that we go after. One of them is that the greatest generation, we won World War II. America was the victor. Comes out in all the books, The Greatest Generation, Band of Brothers, Stephen Ambrose, Private Ryan, and we're saying that the Soviet Union absorbed the German war machine, and Churchill says tore the guts out of the German war machine, whereas Churchill and the U.S. were skirting the second front and moving along the southern flank and taking far fewer casualties.
I mean, the siege of Stalingrad, I mean, the enormous casualties of the Soviets, millions died.
Overall, the Soviets lost 27 million in World War II. The U.S. lost a little over 300,000. So during most of the war, the Soviets were confronting 200 German divisions. The U.S. and the British were confronting 10 combined. But Americans don't know much of that history.
Well, what is kind of interesting and kind of striking, and I've only seen the one installment, but just in this discussion about, the Russian front for the Germans, is we continue to have, as Americans, I think, this myopic look at the world. Like in Vietnam, the Vietnamese didn't ask us to come to their country. Afghanistan, they didn't ask us to come to their country, and yet we view everything through our very narrow.
Well, I think you've gotten the point of our 10 chapters already, but that's good because we emphasize that point throughout. We try to point to it, and the myth that we're building to about World War II is, of course, there's that we did not have to drop the atomic bomb on Japan, and that comes clearer by chapter 3. And there's also, of course, the myth about the British. There's a big three-card money game, three-partner money game going here. It's the British Empire and the U.S. and Russia, and how these three play geopolitically behind the scenes.
You guys, when I saw the title of this, it makes me think of Howard Zinn and the People's History of the United States. I know you guys have done a lot of research. How important, well, this is kind of a geeky history question, but how important was that book to forming the guts of what you guys have done? Because it's probably the most popular and influential alternative history of the United States that's ever been written.
Yeah, it's a different kind of book than Howard's book. Yeah. We both were friends with Howard, and he was very excited about this project, and we miss him. Yeah. And we're building on him, but in a different way. Howard was talking about social forces that shaped America. He's talking about domestic issues more. What we're talking about is, first of all, the American Empire, and secondly, the rise of the national security state. So in some ways, Howard's book and our book are perfect complements. They're the two sides that tell the entire story together.
I'm wondering if, one of the points of this is to say that U.S. presidents, especially in wartime, have trampled on the Constitution and international law, and certainly we've had evidence of that. I'm wondering if you think that our current president has received too little criticism from the left on, say, drone programs. His motto is, what drone program? Kill lists, extrajudicial killing, etc. Has he gotten enough scrutiny from the left on that?
Peter, I think I agree with you on that.
Well, you know, we were very critical of George W. Bush for doing illegal surveillance of Americans surveilling Americans without judicial review. Obama's been targeting and killing people without judicial review, which is a much more serious crime. And so we think that, you know, Obama actually goes over and chooses the people who are going to be targeted by the drones. So we think that's a lot more serious. So has he been criticized enough from the left?
Do you have an alternative for that action, though? Well,
you have to. We're tracing the roots of the problem. We should never. Our mistakes in Afghanistan date back to us creating these people in the first place, who we're now fighting.
Well, we're there now.
They were trained with American textbooks who taught them jihad. I mean, so the problem with American policy is much more deeply rooted. You have to go back to the roots, and we have to fundamentally transform it. Oliver was mentioning the atomic bomb as part of the beginning of the crisis. So that's 1945, bombs that certainly did not have to be dropped. 6 of America's 7 5-star generals and admirals who earned their 5th star during World War II said the atomic bombs were either militarily unnecessary or morally reprehensible. So we start with that, and then we're tracing American policy through the Cold War. So for us, it's just a question of the mistakes that we've made so that we can stop doing them in the future.
Oliver, let me ask you a question. You've been making movies for a long time now, 30 years. Ish, right? You know, and you are, of all the marquee American filmmakers, you've taken on historical topics more than almost anybody. You know, if you think about JFK, you think about Nixon, you think about all the things you've done. Sometimes
Bush too, W.
Of course. So sometimes in a somewhat fictionalized form. This is not. This is more documentary. Place this in the context of that career and what you're trying to do here, because it is a body of work that seems to me to have a coherence to it.
Getting older, John. That's you know, you attack these things in drama. That's one thing, and I'm very proud of it. You have actors, sets, but people always say, you know, that's not what really happened. But I think with a documentary, you can go right to the hard truth. These are the facts. How you interpret them, you can argue all day. But the beauty of it is I can bring out the whole story that I've lived through. I was born right after the atomic bomb, so in New York City. And we were told that this was the center of the world. We were in charge of the world. We were the good. We were the right. And as I've gotten older, through Vietnam experience and beyond, and seen all the 70s, and I didn't turn against my upbringing until about 1980 in that period, and that's when my work started to flourish, ironically. But I really feel strongly that the American experience that I know has been ignored, not told, and not taught in schools. My daughter and my 2 sons who went through, my daughter's 17 now, she's in high school. There it says, atomic bomb dropped on Japan because the Japanese were fanatics and because we were trying to save American lives, which is partly true, but there's a far bigger truth that is being ignored. She's not taught that. That bothers me, because that's what I was taught too.
Well, you know, anything that gets people thinking more about history, reading more about history, watching more history is a net plus, because I agree with you. We do not teach history very well in this country. We simply
the kids are bored by it, and they're lower in science and math. They're lower in history than they are in those. You know why? Because they know the story. They think they know the story, and they always hear the sanitized version, which is America the good, America the just. Because all the juicy stuff gets cut out. Lynn Cheney and those people have managed to do that. All the school boards, Texas, blah blah blah. They cut the real horror story because they don't want to have the kids know that their leaders do bad stuff.
Oliver Stone, Peter Kuznick, thanks very much. The book is The Untold History of the United States, the 10-part series currently airing on Showtime. New episodes premiere on Mondays at 8 p.m. and they're obviously shown during the week, because I saw it last night. What day is today? Wednesday, so it was Tuesday night. Yeah.
All I know is it's the longest day of my life so far. I sit next to you for 2.5 hours.
8:30. Get up. Up next, Joe, Meeker, and Willie's conversation with legendary comic actress and director Penny